Well, with that, it is my highest honor to introduce someone who has done more to protect the state of Israel, protect the Jewish people, than anyone I know, and I've been following this part of the world for my entire life. Please welcome Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu.
Thank you. This is an extraordinarily moving day and an extraordinarily moving evening, and I'm glad to be here with people that I cherish and appreciate. First, my wife, Sara, who's escorting here the First Lady of Guatemala, Patricia Morales. Welcome. The Chief Rabbi of Israel, David Law, dynastic rabbi, I have to say, and his wife. The other rabbi, Mike Evans. Mike, I've known you for close to 40 years, but I learned tonight things that are I didn't know, that are deeply moving, and I think people appreciate the force of truth that came from your words. So thank you for your friendship for all these years. Thank you. We're here with members of the Israeli Knesset and the government. I think I see you off Gallant, if I'm not mistaken. There, stand up so people see you. Avi Dichter from the Knesset, Shareen Askel, and the mayor of Jerusalem until very recently, an excellent mayor, member of Knesset Nir Barkat. And of course, we have here a distinguished delegation from Guatemala and distinguished members of the Israeli Prime Minister's office, I have to tell you. We have the National Security Advisor, the Director General of the Prime Minister's office, the Secretary of the Cabinet, my advisors, all of them. They're all very good and all very dedicated. But above all, we have the real force behind everything here. That's Tammy and David, who have been nothing short of extraordinary. And I too, David, have a perspective. And I can tell you that in all the years that I've worked, that I followed first and then worked for the State of Israel and also for its great alliance with the United States, there has never been a greater friend of Israel here in Jerusalem representing the United States than Ambassador David Melech Friedman. Tremendous. And no better friend in the White House than President Donald J. Trump. Now, I just finished reading a book by a historian, Simon Montefiore. It's called A Biography of Jerusalem. And he relates what happened to Jerusalem over the 3,000 years since the time of King David, how it passes from one hands to another and so on. And finally, it comes into British hands in the 20th century after Allenby conquered Jerusalem from the Turks, and who had been here for 400 years. And there's a big debate going on in the British government, what to do with this land, what to do with Jerusalem. And they're all debating, and Churchill, who visits this land in the early 20s as colonial secretary, and they ask him, what do you think about Jerusalem? And he says, well, you know what? It's very simple. He said, give it to the Jews. They're the only ones who gave Jerusalem any meaning. Like that. So here's the meaning. We had Independence Day celebrations a few days ago, and I had about a minute and a half to say something. So here's what I started with. I said, the Jewish people are the only people on earth who live in the same land they lived in 3,000 years ago, with the same capital, with the same name, with the same language, with the same religion. The only one. That's an extraordinary fact. But here's the next extraordinary fact. We lost it and then retrieved it. That's never happened before either. Because what we know and what we all recognize is that we lived here for 1,000 years. And in these 1,000 years, we changed our life forever. We forged our identity, our faith, our beliefs, our morals, and we gave this to humanity through the Bible, and then we lost it. Now I can tell you a secret. Most of the people who lived, most of the peoples who lived in antiquity lost their land, lost their capital. Most of them were driven out through immigration or through conquest. That's not unique to the Jewish people. But what happened to all of them was one of two things. They either conquered a new land or they assimilated in the lands to which they immigrated or were forced out into. Either conquest or assimilation, and in any case, disappearance. The Jewish people are the only ones who refused either one. Refused as a body assimilation and refused to conquer a new land and say, well, that's our homeland. We wanted to do something that no other people in history wanted to do. We wanted to come back. It took us some 2,000 years to do that, and we never wavered. And what is it that was on our lips? If you were in a ghetto in Spain, or a ghetto in Warsaw, 400 years later, what was the word on our lips? Yerushalayim. Zion, Mike. Yerushalamsky Street. Yerushalayim. Eretz Zion v'Yerushalayim. This is the focal point of our yearnings, of our hopes, of our prayers, of our existence. So we wanted to come back, and we made it. And then when we came back, we reestablished our land, our independence, our army, our economy, our genius. We did all that. And reestablished our capital here in Jerusalem. In 1948, in the War of Independence, Jerusalem was surrounded. And we were being surrounded by other fronts. And the question was what to do, where to deploy the power. And Ben-Gurion decided, against many of his advisors, to send forces here to extricate Jerusalem. And they said to him, Prime Minister, why are you doing this? He wasn't Prime Minister, I think, at the time. They asked him, why are you doing this? And he said, yes, he was. He said, because this is Jerusalem, Yerushalayim, Yerushalayim. And this united secular and Orthodox alike, believing and unbelieving, we all believe. It's a focal point of our faith, of our identity, of everything. We established Jerusalem as our capital. And after this extraordinary thing that never happened in the history of humanity, it never happened. Nothing like this ever happened. That we would have such antique roots, that we would recover our land, recover our capital, recover everything. The world refuses to recognize Jerusalem. Can you imagine? They refuse to recognize Jerusalem. One after the other. All the countries. Some of them had embassies here, kicked out by pressure in 67 and 73. And since then, it's almost half a century. Since then, nobody recognizes Jerusalem as our capital. The embassies are in Tel Aviv. I love Tel Aviv. But it's Jerusalem, Yerushalayim. It's our capital. And what a capital. Nobody moves the embassy, and nobody recognizes Jerusalem until someone comes was politically incorrect, brash and unabashed, and one day out of the blue says, that's right, Jerusalem is Israel's capital and I recognize it. And that's what President Donald Trump did. Right? And in his politically incorrect and unsophisticated way, he moved the embassy to Jerusalem exactly 1 year ago, right here. And then he did another thing. He subordinated the consulate to the embassy. What an idea. I mean, can you imagine? How dare he? How dare you, David? What an idea. It's so clear, so obvious, but it takes leadership. And we have this leadership here. I want to thank you, David, for the extraordinary work that you've been doing to correct this wrong and to build our common future. I think I know many things that people here don't know, but what you all know is enough. And what you all know, Dayenu, with what we know we can say, thank you, David. Thank you from the bottom of our hearts. Thank you. And you're quite right that we have to do more because we face continual challenges. We get stronger, and the challenges get bigger. We outpace them. You know that, because if you came to this country 70 years ago and you see what was there then, and what is here now, we outpace and we outmatch the challenges and our enemies. And even our enemies change. You're quite right, Mike. There is a new efflorescence, a new renaissance of relations between us and many of our Arab neighbors and many non-Arab Muslim countries, many more than you can think. And it's true that we're united in our desire to stop Iranian aggression. And I believe that Israel and all the countries of the region and all the countries who seek peace in the world should stand together with the United States against Iranian aggression. But it's also true that we have to keep on strengthening the state of Israel and keep on strengthening the indispensable alliance with America. This is something that we all share. When I say we, I include with that also Tzipi Khotoveli, the Deputy Foreign Minister. I was Foreign Minister until recently. Tzipi, where are you? Let's see. Tzipi Khotoveli and Amir Ohana, our great and illustrious champion of human rights in the Knesset. I want to say that we all believe that we have to strengthen Israel through alliances by making Israel stronger economically, stronger militarily. It becomes stronger diplomatically. And whereas once we were a dead end that nobody comes to, everybody is coming to Jerusalem. On this day, a year after the recognition by the United States and by Guatemala, by President Jimmy Morales, of Jerusalem as Israel's capital, the countries of the world are coming. Some have opened offices here en route to recognizing Jerusalem fully, but they're all coming to Jerusalem and they're all coming to Israel because they know that we are seizing the future in technology, in security, in cyber defenses, and everything, in agriculture and medicine. You know all that. It's happening. And it's changing the perception of Israel, not of the anti-Semites, they'll never change, but for many, many, many millions, I would even say billions of people around the world, Israel is becoming something else. It's becoming a focal point of strength, of ingenuity, of creativity, and that is helping us build alliances. And all countries need alliances. Superpowers need alliances. So obviously a small country, small in territory, giant in spirit. A country like Israel needs alliances too. And as we make those alliances with the Arab world, in Asia, in Africa, in Latin America, as we make those alliances, we never forget the indispensable alliance, the alliance with the United States that precedes all else and is important as nothing else. We value this, we cherish this, and we want to keep on expanding it. And David, I suggest that in the coming year, you and I will continue the talks we've had and talks that I've had in Washington, how to make sure that what we see today is not on a sliding ramp, that we move forward and get to the altar. Let us move forward and cement the Israeli-American alliance as never before, so it stands for all time. Thank you all for everything that you have done for the state of Israel and for the great, indescribable friendship between our two countries. Thank you. Thank you. Toda rabba.